state. If you look at what's happening to our businesses, we have 3M that's leaving, we have all these different, Northwest that's moving its headquarters somewhere else, and you have to really ask yourself, well, why is this business climate become so unfriendly towards businesses? And when it comes down to it, our economic situation, what jobs we have available, what jobs we go to work every day, this has a tremendous effect on our lives. And if suddenly we find ourselves where there are no jobs available because the businesses don't want to be here because of the programs that have been enacted, well, then we're going to find ourselves in a really tough situation. So it's the role of the small government person to provide a counterpoint to those who would say, well, there are all these social programs and social things that we need to do to help out society. It's the role of the person who believes in small or limited government to say, no, that's not really the case. We need to think about a way to bring government down to a smaller size, to be business friendly, but not in a way that compromises our values as a society or compromises our environment. It's really the role of government to provide for that type of control.
Open up a little bit more. Tell us a little bit more about, well, actually, I would appreciate a specific, response perhaps to, with this foreclosure crisis, what do you say to constituents that might be listening right now, who might be going through this, or at least probably know people who are, at least have neighbors who are? What do you say?
Well, I can say for one that the programs that have been enacted by the federal government are extremely difficult to use. This is something that I have intimate knowledge of. I have friends that are, have had their mortgages adjust several times, and I think that in a lot of ways the mortgage programs that have been set up are extremely detrimental. And so I think that some of the things that the state legislators need to do is to talk to the federal constituency, the people that are representing us at the federal level, and say, look, we really need to have these programs not be bailouts for the banks, but be more geared towards the people that are small homeowners. That's really more important than bailing out these huge banks and giving them trillions of dollars. It's really disgusting the way that our federal government has sold out the people in favor of the banks.
And then, so shifting away from the foreclosure crisis, you've got a couple other hot button issues that you really like to focus on. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So we've got a school referendum that's coming up in Minneapolis proper. They're coming back and asking us for another $60 million. And we've started looking intently at the budgets and started to see, well, where exactly is this money being spent? And we found that there are some things that are quite alarming. There was a school that was built on the in the middle of North Minneapolis. It's called Jordan Park. We spent $15 million building this school. It opened up in 2000. It went through all this turmoil. It was fresh started, No Child Left Behind. That's where they come in and fire all the teachers and try and get the test scores back up. They changed its name, tried to change its focus, tried to find something that this school could do, and eventually in 2006 they closed it down, and we still owe $14.7 million on it, but yet this school is sitting idle. And it's just one of many different kinds of examples of how the school system has failed the people of North Minneapolis and of Minneapolis in general, where they have not held themselves to an accountable level, where they've spent money wisely, and so now they're coming back and they're asking for a property tax increase, essentially, to provide more money for the schools. And that's something that I don't think is reasonable, especially with declining enrollments in North Minneapolis and in Minneapolis in general. The Minneapolis public school system is seeing a decline in enrollment.
What's going to happen to that building?
It's sitting idle right now. They're trying to find a use for it, but until someone figures out a good thing to do for it, it's just going to continue to sit there and be a drain on the debt service on the budget.
Wow, I didn't know that.
It's something that's quite surprising and alarming once you start looking at what the school board's been doing. They've closed a lot of schools over the last few years, and enrollments continue to decline, and I think that's largely due to the fact that people just don't have any confidence in the public school system in Minneapolis anymore.
Specific to your neighborhood, are those issues especially or not so relevant?
They're extremely relevant. When I go out and talk to people, out knocking on doors in the neighborhood, talking to the constituency, schools are something that's extremely relevant to them. And when you start asking them, what are the important issues, they say, I can't afford to have my taxes raised again. And I don't like how the school systems are being run. And so those are very important issues to the people in the neighborhood.
I think it's easy for an incumbent to understand the system since they've been there a while, or at least for the previous term, to make the suggestion that, you know, so-and-so complains a lot, but they may not have the answers we need. You know, what are you going to do? Yeah, you're good at pointing out our problems, but what are we going to do to fix them? And, you know, of course they have an idea of how they think they can fix it, because they're the ones who created the mess. But it probably doesn't, you know, do enough to necessarily take away the complaint or the point. But it is kind of a tough question for me to understand an answer to. What would one do to, I guess, what do you do as a new representative? You sort of go in and...
It's easy to cast stones as the guy coming in, but I think part of finding the solutions is first pointing out the problems, and not in a general way, not to just say, well, the schools are bad. That's not sufficient. We have to say, how are the schools bad, or why do we have a crime problem? What is the real root cause? If we can do